I'd like to thank you all for joining to learn how you can electrify your ride with an EV or an e-bike. My name is Annika Osborne. I'm with Cool the Earth. We're an environmental nonprofit with the mission to reduce carbon emissions and air pollution. While we are big fans of walking, biking, public transportation, and carpooling, preferably in an electric car, with our Ride and Drive Clean collaboration, we work to advance the adoption of electric vehicles, EVs, and e-bikes in a fair and just marketplace. So I want to thank the East Bay Clean Cities Coalition for sponsoring this webinar. This is a part of a series of webinars and programs for the City of Oakland employees. We had one last month, New Year, New Ride. Showcasing lots of the new models. We'll be doing a little bit of that in this webinar as well. And then we have one coming up on March 19th. It's an e-bike focused webinar. We already have 20 people signed up for that one, which is great. We're a month out. So I know the city will keep promoting that, and hopefully we'll get a lot of people to come to that one. We're planning in May an EV and e-bike show, location TBD, maybe around Lake Merritt, maybe somewhere else. But I'm working very closely with Richard Battersby on coordinating these events. And then finally, I think it's in June, we have an EV 102 webinar, which is a new EV driver webinar, just trying to make the transition to driving electric smoother. We do a deep dive on charging at public chargers, like when you're on a road trip, how to make sure you have the cleanest and most affordable electricity to charge with and all that good stuff. So anyway, we're very happy about this partnership with the East Bay Clean Cities Coalition. And I will move on here, talk a little bit about what this webinar is today. So the focus on this webinar is how to save money on an EV. So we'll first talk a little bit about benefits of driving electric, and then we'll do a deep dive on incentives. So you'll understand all the great incentives that are out there that can help you go electric and save money when you go electric. Let's see, then we'll do an EV showcase, which is most of the slides that I did last time. Then we'll have a how-to EV, which is mostly how to charge your EV, and a little bit more about our organization, Ride and Drive Clean, and then we have a Q&A at the end. So I will say there is I will be covering a lot of information, but not to worry, I'll be sending a PDF of this presentation as well as the recording of this presentation. In a few days, I have to wait for my video guide to kind of curate the video a little bit, make sure it's all good. And so feel free during this presentation to throw questions in the chat. There may be some EV drivers who are in this meeting who might want to answer questions. Feel free to do that. Otherwise, we'll take a look at those questions at the end. We'll have that follow-up email as well. So I'm not sure. I know we were going to try to have somebody from the East Bay Clean Cities Coalition join. Joey, but I don't see Joey Williams on this call. Are you here? Joey? If you are, okay. This is normally where Richard would present. It looks like Joey is not with us right now, but I'm just going to leave this slide. I'm not going to read it. I don't know all the details about this, but the East Bay, the Clean Cities coalitions work throughout the United States to help people help reduce emissions and air pollution in also, in cities. So this East Bay one focused in Oakland, but, really throughout the East Bay, and they've been working on all of these great things. And I'm not really an expert on all of this, so I'm going to just move on to the next slide. So talk a little bit more about the things that I know about. But before doing so, I would like to introduce Kirby Olson to talk a little bit about the city's mobility plan. Kirby is the new mobility supervisor, parking and mobility division for the city of Oakland, Department of Transportation. So Kirby, would you like to unmute and just share a few comments about this slide and the next one?
Yeah, happy to. So all of this electric vehicle work is definitely supported by city policy and city planning. So you'll see on the left the Equitable Climate Action Plan that was passed in 2020, which contains a number of aggressive goals for reducing the city's overall carbon emissions. That plan called for the creation of a zero emission vehicle action plan, which we then got a grant to do, and we finished that in 2022. And so that plan talks about how the city's going to transition our fleet, but also the city of Oakland in general, over to zero emission vehicles over the next 20 years. So encourage everyone to take a look at that plan, and I can post it in the chat.
Great. Do you want to talk a little bit about these different aspects of the plan?
Yeah, so the plan has a number of chapters that touch on different parts of the transportation system and the built environment. So includes existing buildings, medium and heavy duty fleets, of course, with the port of Oakland. That's a big issue here. What we can do as a city to sort of be a leader in this space, as well as what we can do with micromobility. So that includes things like e-scooters and e-bikes, where we're going to put curbside chargers and public charging in general, and then how we encourage a zero emission vehicle industry and economy in Oakland.
Thank you so much, Kirby. Kirby's going to come back a little later and talk a bit about e-bikes as well. So thanks for being here, Kirby. So there are, I'm going to start diving into my presentation now. Keep in mind, you could throw questions in the chat, or if you need to raise your hand, just go for it, and I'll be able to see that and call on you. So there are many benefits to driving electric. In California, our passenger vehicles are the single largest source of GHG emissions, representing 50% of our individual carbon footprint. So when we switch from a gas car to an EV and plug into clean energy like we can do here in the Bay Area, if you live in Oakland, we have AVA, which used to be East Bay Clean Energy. Anyway, when we can do this, we are taking impactful climate action by reducing carbon emissions and air pollution, both which disproportionately impact our equity priority communities. And in addition to reducing our impact on the planet, there's no sacrifice when we go electric. We can save time, money, and improve our driving experience with an EV. And an EV can even help with backup power when there's a power outage. I don't know if some of you experienced that. I was lucky. I'm over in San Rafael. We did not have a power outage, but many of my neighbors did. I'm sure some people out your way as well did. Many of you on this call probably. So although early EV drivers paid a high premium for electric cars, today's EV drivers often save money, and here are some reasons why. It costs much less to fuel an electric car. Fueling a gas car can be 2 to 5 times more expensive than fueling. Whoa. Sorry, that was weird. That just happened automatically. Sorry about that. Didn't touch anything. Sorry. So it's more expensive, than fueling an EV, depending upon where and when you're charging it. And electricity prices tend to be more stable than gas prices, as we have seen in the last few years. In addition, maintenance costs are 40% lower for EVs. It's basically adding windshield wiper fluid and rotating your tires. And then there are standard incentives available for up to $7,500, which can help bring down the cost of purchasing or leasing an EV. So we'll dig into some of those. So there are currently 4 types of incentives that that will help you save, $7,500 or even more when you buy certain EVs. So additional grants and rebates are available for both new and used EVs for people who qualify through their income and their residence. We won't be going into great detail on those today, but you can ask me questions during Q&A. So the federal tax credit is called the Clean Vehicle Credit now. It's been updated in 2024. There are new qualifications for this tax credit, which we will review on the next slide. And there is a tax credit also for used EVs. The commercial credit is interesting because you might not think you can take advantage of that as a consumer, but because actually, if you lease an EV, the bank actually owns the car, then it's considered a commercial transaction. So the dealership that is partnered, has that, works with that bank, the dealership is allowed to pass on those savings, the $7,500, to the driver or to the owner if you lease an EV. So this is really great. The good news for all of these tax credits, or sorry, for these, these options, is that they are now available at point of sale. That's new this year for new EVs and pre-owned EVs. So that's really good news. So that is cash on the hood, helps with the down payment. But the downside is that not every vehicle qualifies for purchase. But we'll go into that a little bit more on the next slide. Depending upon where you live and who provides your electricity, there may be additional utility and CCA incentives. PG&E offers a pre-owned EV rebate for $1,000 for anyone, regardless of your income, and all the way up to $4,000, depending upon your income. If you'd like to install a charger at home, there's also a home charging tax credit, 30% of the cost of the install and hardware, up to $1,000. New this year, though, the location of your residence determines qualification. And then Ride and Drive Clean is currently offering an EV discount campaign. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but it's something that we do quarterly. So we have negotiated additional discounts on 4 EVs for the month of February. And that can help you save thousands of dollars. And those, everything, they stack together with this federal tax credit, et cetera. So these are 2 really great savings calculators that you can use to sort of customize and find out exactly which incentives you qualify for based on your income, your household size, and where you live. So a little bit more about the clean vehicle credit. This is only now for new EVs, for purchasing new EVs. But before I dive into the federal tax credit, I do want to emphasize that I am not a tax expert. So I do recommend that you verify with a tax professional for guidance as needed. As I mentioned, the clean vehicle credit for $7,500 is now available as an instant rebate, so it can be applied to your down payment at the point of sale. Because there are more requirements this year, there are fewer EVs that currently qualify, and the income limits are still in place. So I'll give you an example of that. So let's say you file singly and you earn more than $150,000, but you decide to take that rebate up front. You can get that $7,500, off the car immediately. But when you use this this credit, you also are the dealer is required to report it to the IRS, and you actually have to leave the dealership with the seller's report to confirm that it's been reported to the IRS. And if it turns out that you earned more than these income limits, you'll have to pay it back at the end. But the good thing is that's new this year is you don't need to have tax liability in order to qualify. Let's see, what else? Yes, so this is for purchase and finance of new EVs. The final assembly has to be in North America. These are the vehicle price limits. There are many, many EVs under these vehicle price limits, as you'll see shortly. And yeah, these are those income limits. And then there are the critical mineral and battery components. The federal government wants to make sure that we're sourcing these materials and building these components locally, or at least with some of our trade partners. But yes, as I mentioned, you do want to make sure that the dealer you work with is registered with the IRS, and you do need to get a seller's report before you leave. You can check out which vehicles qualify using this website, fueleconomy.gov, and here is the list as well. So I'm just going to let you read this for like 30 seconds, and then I'll talk a little bit about it. Okay, so here are all the EVs that now qualify for the tax credit and the amounts, but more EVs will be added to this list during the year as EVs and battery components increase their local production. So I know there are some manufacturing plants that are coming to the United States for both EVs as well as batteries. So that's good news. But you do want to check back maybe on this website because hopefully, like for example, the Volkswagen ID4 was just added like a week and a half ago. So it's good to know. And then the Tesla, for example, so it's not every single Tesla Model 3 X and Y. With the Tesla Model 3, it's only the performance model, which you can't actually buy right now, but you should be able to buy it soon. With the Model X, it's one particular model, and the Model Y, which was the most popular car sold, or the biggest, the car that sold the most last year in the United States, the Tesla Model Y, all of their versions do qualify for the 7,500. So while the clean vehicle tax credit has lots of restrictions, there may be around all of these requirements, like we talked about before, the commercial credit. So if you lease an EV, yeah, it'll act as a commercial credit, and the dealership may pass on a 7,500 lease credit or a lease bonus when they figure out your payments. They're not really calling it the federal tax credit because it's usually just kind of a discount off of the lease. There are fewer restrictions, there's no income cap, and the EV can be manufactured in other countries. So I know like Kia and Hyundai and has been big on promoting their that many of the dealerships are participating in this. So the used EV credit is also available as an upfront credit for up to $4,000. Pre-owned EVs do not need to meet sourcing requirements, and the price of the used EV must be less than $25,000. A year ago, it was hard to find a used EV that was less than $25,000 because the pricing surged for new EVs and that got passed down to used EVs. But today, it's easy to find some great deals under $25,000 in the pre-owned market. But yeah, there are some restrictions here, so just good to be aware of these. Before I move on, I just want to say, like, overall, we're very excited about these changes because we believe we're moving in the right direction in terms of providing rebates for those who really need it and bringing more green jobs to the US and relying less on predictable sources for battery components and assembly. So we think it's a good thing. Okay, in addition, we have our February EV discount campaign. So to help overcome the cost barrier to getting an EV, Ride and Drive Clean has helped hundreds of consumers over the past 5 years save additional money on EVs with our quarterly EV discount campaigns. So the way this works is we partner with a car concierge service called Cartelligent. They have offices in Sausalito, Walnut Creek, and Menlo Park. They are able to negotiate. They work with many different dealers, and they're able to negotiate special discounts on several EVs. Every time we do a discount campaign, it's a little different. So this time around, for the whole month of February, if you sign up on our website, I'll explain how to do this, that you're interested in this and you talk to Cartelligent, you can get really, really great savings on these 4 cars. And typically Cartelligent, the great thing about Cartelligent, it's like a no hassle buying situation. It's not like buying at a dealership. It's much easier. It's smooth. You basically tell them which cars you're interested in, what color you want, the trim that you want. They go out and source it. Then they come back to you with pricing. And at that point, you can tell them, yes, I'm interested, or no, I'm not interested, or I changed my mind, I want a different color, etc. So if you do move forward with the transaction, then you would go to one of their 3 locations and pick up your EV. They do a little training session with you to like make sure you're familiar with your car and all of the new features, and off you go. You sign the papers, and it's super easy. So if they typically charge a service fee of $595, but for these 4 cars during the discount campaign, they are waiving that. So if you decide to go with Cartelligent, which I think is always a good idea to check on pricing with Cartelligent because they always have great pricing on all EVs, and it's such a great buying experience. So it's always worth checking to see what the pricing is with Cartelligent. So if you were to go for a car that's not part of this deal, part of this campaign, you would still have to pay their service fee, $595. But if you tell them Ride and Drive Clean is sending you here, they'll give you a $100 discount. But if they source your car and you don't like the deal that they come up with for you, you're not obligated to buy. And then you'll get your the service fee back. So it's really like a no risk proposition. So I recommend anyone buying a car to check out Cartelligent. So this is what we're offering now. The way to go about this, and I'll send you a link to this in the follow-up email. If you go to our discount campaign page and scroll down, there's a place for you to sign up. This is where you would just fill in this information and you could say, yes, I know what I want, or I have it down to a couple options. And then Cartelligent will call you within 48 hours, business hours. But if you just want to kind of stay on the list and be informed of future EV discount campaigns, you can choose that option as well. It's a really, yeah, it's a great way to get an EV. But the thing that we know is like a journey. Everybody is on their own journey or their own path to an EV. Sometimes it's not, you might not be ready for it right now, but you may be ready for it in 3 months, and we'll have another EV discount campaign with other cars in a couple months, for example. So we're here really to help you guys, along your journey to getting an EV, which eventually everybody is required to do here in the United States. In California, if you choose to own a car, which, maybe you won't have to. So in addition to saving money with an EV, so first of all, are there any questions at all about saving money with an EV, any of these rebates? Happy to take them now before I move on to the next section. Okay, I don't see anything at this point, so we'll continue on. So in addition to saving money with an EV, you can also save time. With an EV, you can get access to the HOV lane as a single passenger with a special decal that you apply for to the DMV, and you'll never have to wait in line at a gas station again. For many people, it's convenient to charge at home or at work. And EVs offer low maintenance and efficiency. While there are over 2,000 moving parts in a gas car, there are fewer than 20 in an EV. So as I mentioned before, maintenance is limited and you have to have very few maintenance visits as well. And then once in a while, you save time with VIP parking. I notice oftentimes in shopping centers, the EV charging stations are right up front. Sometimes at workplaces, that is the case as well. And EVs are a little bit more fun to drive. What I really like is the extra torque or power that you get when you drive an EV. I like that I can quickly accelerate when I'm getting on the freeway. And then once I'm on the freeway, I can easily just power up and glide into where I want to be, whatever lane I want to be in. It feels easy and safe. The quiet, smooth drive makes for great conversations or good audiobook listening when you're on a road trip. For me, the high safety ratings were a big factor, especially I had teenagers at home when we went to an all electric, all EV household. We have 2 EVs. And so for me, I wanted to make sure they were in really safe cars. But of course, high safety ratings are important for everyone. So with so many EVs and plug-in hybrids available, there's an EV or e-bike for every lifestyle and budget. Most fully electric EVs offer 200 to 300 miles of range. Some will go even farther on one charge. That means you can go from Oakland to Tahoe with maybe just a short 15-minute charging break, or from Oakland to Sacramento and back without having to stop and charge at all, which is really nice. So here come the EVs. So in the next section, I'll be doing an EV showcase with some popular EVs that have been around for a while and some that will be coming in 2024. The prices listed are the base MSRP. I've starred the ones that qualify for the federal tax credit for purchase. So the Chevy Bolt EV and EUV are the best deals around. They are super fun and peppy to drive, easy to park. The Bolt EUV model is similar to the EV, but it's a little more spacious, mostly in the back seat for your backseat passengers. When you buy or lease a Bolt, you'll get a free level 2 charger or a charging card for $500 to use when you're on a road trip or using public chargers. Unfortunately, GM is taking a break from production for 2024, and we'll have a revamped model in 2025, coming back just with the Bolt EUV. So get a 2023 model now while you can. There are still some left. And then there should be many pre-owned Bolts available on the market for years to come. Just to give an example, I work closely with this one used EV dealership. He was saying the 2017 Chevy Bolt you can get for about $15,000. which is really great, especially considering that there was a recall about a year and a half ago. So in order to sell that Chevy Bolt, it needs to have a brand new battery pack. So you're getting a brand new car essentially, because with EVs, the battery is really the essentials. So really good pricing. And what's nice about the Chevy Bolt is it has a nice long range. So that's a good thing to consider even now. And then with that, new battery, you get a new warranty for, if it's been around for like a year since it replaced its battery pack, it might have 7 to 8 years of a warranty. So really, really great. The Nissan Leaf has been around since 2012. We're all familiar with that car as a lower range option, and the Plus model offers higher range at just a little more cost. So the Chevy Bolts do qualify for that federal tax credit for purchase, which brings the price down significantly. At our last webinar, we had Shayna Hirschfield Gold, but she wasn't able to make it today. She's on the sustainability team, but she drives a Nissan Leaf, and she said if anybody's interested in talking to her about it, you're welcome to reach out. Kirby, if you could put her email address in the chat, that would be super helpful right now. Otherwise, I can do it after the webinar, after the presentation. Thanks. So these next three cars came out in 2021, so they're relatively new. The ID4 is the first from the Volkswagen ID brand. There are many more coming. This one is part of our EV discount campaign. The new people love their Ford Mustang Mach-E, little nostalgia there. And the new Audi Q4 e-tron comes in at a great price, about $20,000 less than the regular Audi e-tron. And incidentally, this year, the average price of a new car in the United States is $48,000. So the pricing is pretty competitive, and that's before incentives. And then there's Tesla. We like to focus on the technology. The Model 3 and the Model Y are the most affordable models, and several trims do qualify for the federal tax credit. As I mentioned, with the Model 3, it's the performance, and the Model Y, I believe all trims qualify. These are beautiful, safe cars, and the Model Y has an optional third row and seats 7 passengers. The big advantage to Tesla is its charging infrastructure. So Tesla was smart. They want to sell cars. So they built very reliable, easy to use, and fast charging stations. So if you're relying on public infrastructure for your charging, whether that's at home or around work, or when you're on a road trip, if you're doing that a lot, we recommend Tesla just for this reason, the fast, easy, reliable charging network. And I used to own a Tesla Model 3. I actually bought a pre-owned Tesla Model Y over the summer. I also have a Volkswagen e-Golf. That's our second car. It only has an 80-mile range, but it's great as a second car. If you have any questions about these models at all, I'm happy to answer them. Okay, so the cars on this slide all have a bidirectional battery, which means that you can get an adapter and plug it into the charge port and plug in an extension cord and power up large home appliances like your refrigerator. So I know last week a lot of people lost power. Many people were like, oh no, I have to throw away all this food from my refrigerator and freezer. I know it's not super convenient to move your refrigerator necessarily, but if you have one of these cars, you can plug it in and connect it and power up your refrigerator and other large appliances up to 1900 watts. So the Kias and the Hyundai, and so there's no need for a gas generator, which is significant. The Kias and the Hyundais are built on the same platform, which also offers very fast charging. And the Kia Niro has been updated this year to have bidirectional charging and faster charging as well on the road. It has like a slightly different model style. The Fisker Ocean is exciting with a full-length solar sky roof. If it's parked in the sun during the day, it can generate 1,500 emissions-free miles per year. And at the push of a button, all 8 windows and the solar sky roof come down, making it as close to a convertible as you can get in an EV. So very cool. So Subaru and Toyota are a little late to the EV market, but last year they came out with these 2 models, and Nissan Ariya is Nissan's second all-electric EV. So that's nice that they're mixing it up a little bit. If you're interested in an EV that has 3 rows of seats and can seat 7 passengers, these are all available now. Just one of them qualifies for the federal tax credit. I'm surprised actually that the Mercedes is more affordable than the Kia EV9, but the Kia EV9 was voted the best car of the year. So I haven't test driven it yet, but I hope to do so soon. There are three electric trucks that are, have already hit the market. More are on their way, like the Chevy Silverado EV and the Ram EV truck. These trucks are basically generators at home and batteries on wheels on the road. The regular F-150 is the most popular car in the United States and has been for decades. So we think this Lightning model is going to be very popular. We know a lot of cities and counties and organizations have purchased this for their fleet because it's such a handy car to have around. And Rivian is marketing as an adventure company, so they're installing chargers in far-reaching places like national parks. And over 1 million people have ordered the Cybertruck. I've seen a few while I'm driving on the freeway, just like next to me. I'm like, whoa, it's really trippy when you see one. I saw one in North Beach the other day, parked on this tiny little street, and it looked like, very futuristic. Um, very mixed reviews on if you like the styling on that one. So while Chevrolet is getting rid of their Chevy Bolt for 2024, it's coming back in 2025. They are mixing it up with a few exciting new models this year. The Chevy Blazer is the first mass market SUV built on GM's Ultium EV toolkit. It has a good real world range and an interface that will help drivers find charging stations, as well as a familiar layout. And the Chevy Equinox comes in at a really nice price. These are, of course, approximations because we don't really know until they release the car, So if finding a parking spot is often on your mind, one of these smaller EVs should be on your radar. The 2025 Mini Cooper EV comes with significantly more range than the current model. The Fiat F500e was very popular for many years. They discontinued it in like 2018, 2019, and it is making a comeback with more range this year. Very cute car. And the Volvo EX30 is due to come out this summer. Volvo is saying it's small in size, but big on safety. So really nice to see some, we know that most Americans want big cars, like Suburbans or, cars with 3 rows of seats and trucks. But we're really happy that we're seeing some smaller EVs as well, because many people who are more environmentally minded are interested in a smaller car. So that's great. The Volkswagen ID brand has promised to come out with new EVs every year for the next several years. The ID.7 speaks to the Passat family as a sedan, and my personal favorite, the Volkswagen ID Buzz microbus, should be coming out later this year. I read an article they're not doing pre-orders on this because that hasn't been smooth in the past, they said. So I'm not exactly sure how this is happening, but if you're interested in that, you can sign up on their website and get updates when they're, at your dealership. So very cool. So if you cannot find an all-electric car that works for you, there are many plug-in hybrids available. If you plug in a PHEV, as we call them, every day, you may be able to cover your commute driving all electric, and you can save the gas tank for road trips. The Prius Prime just upped their range, which is nice. And the others have nice long range, so that's great to see. Um, and if you are on the market for a larger plug-in hybrid, these are all available. It's good to see that, the Toyota RAV4 Prime was hugely popular when it came out, like 2 or 3 years ago during the pandemic, but dealerships were charging like 5,000 over MSRP for it. And I've heard that now you can get these for under MSRP, which is really great. I know if people love their Toyotas for reliability, so I know this is a very popular car. And, EVs have been around for about 10, 12 years. And with this new technology, people have tended to lease their EVs. So now there are many available on the used market. And the great news about that is many people continue to lease EVs. So EVs are always coming off of their leases. So this is, very, very good news. And you can find them at different places. There are some dealerships that focus on used EVs. I will name two of them that I work closely with. One is called eMotion Autos, and they kind of like they're a little bit like Cartelligent. Like you tell them exactly what you want, and they go to the auctions and find it for you. These are two guys who were Stanford professors who used to do lectures and research on climate change in the 80s and now just want to accelerate EV adoption. So this is what they're doing in their retirement. That's how I got my used EV, and they're great to work with. There's also Greenlight Auto, which is out of like the Colma, Daly City area. They have an inventory of EVs, and you can go to their website and check out what they have. And besides these, there are many higher range EVs like the Chevy Bolt and the Teslas that are also available on the used market. Um, I do want to say though, with some of these like lower range EVs, if you do have two cars in your family, having a lower range EV works out just fine most of the time. You can have one car that you use for road trips and one car for more around the town or like your daily driving. So that's worked out really nicely for me anyway. So if you're not in the market for an EV, an e-bike might be just right for you. So instead of hopping in your gas car, you can try commuting or running errands with an e-bike. E-bikes are fast and fun. There are so many different types and models to choose from cargo to commuter to recreational bikes. Um, and at this point, I'm going to reintroduce Kirby Olson, who's going to talk a little bit about his experience with e-biking. So, Kirby, what's your favorite thing about e-biking, and what has your experience been like?
Hey, thanks, Hanukkah. Yeah, my favorite thing about e-biking is probably the ability to accelerate from a stop up to 20 miles an hour just about as fast as any car can. So that puts me at an advantage on the roadway sometimes. But it also decreases my commute time probably by about 25%. Since before my e-bike, I was riding my pedal bike. And just wanted to give some quick facts about my bike. And since this webinar is about cost, I'll start with that. So I bought my e-bike a year ago, last January, for about $1,050 before tax, which I thought was a pretty good deal. The brand I bought is called Velotric, but there's a lot of similar e-bike brands out there. In my first year of ownership, I put about 1,000 miles on my bike. I have, in addition to the bike, I have a sturdy lock, which you'll probably want as well if you have an e-bike, which cost about $100. That was the Kryptonite New York. And then with my rear rack and rear basket, probably put about $1,400 all in. So my bike is a upright commuter style bike. It has the basket I mentioned that I use for groceries and carrying other things. It has a mountain bike fork in the front, which helps with absorbing, bumps in the road and such. It is a heavy bike, so it weighs about 65 pounds. That battery, it has a relatively large battery that is removable, so I wouldn't recommend this for anyone that needs to go upstairs. But you can, if you do need to go upstairs, you can remove the battery. So my bike is a class 2 e-bike. That means it has a throttle and that it assists your pedaling up to 20 miles an hour. And then it has a 750 watt rear hub motor, and the battery is pretty high capacity for an e-bike. The range is going to really vary depending on how much you're pedaling versus and what speed you're on, because it has 5 different speed settings. I personally get about 30 miles of range. That's because I run it at 20 miles an hour basically all the time, and I often use the throttle. So if you're doing more pedaling, you're going to get a lot more range. So overall, my experience has been great. I'd really recommend an e-bike to anyone, especially if you live up a hill, if you need to carry heavy things like cargo or children, etc., or if you just like to go fast on the roadway. If cost is an issue for you for e-bikes, and you're willing to wait a little bit, both the state of California and Ava Community Energy are working on rebate programs. Neither one of those is out yet, but they're supposed to be launching sometime this year, I believe. Although both of them will be will have an income component, so they'll prioritize people with lower incomes. And if you have any questions about e-bikes in general, feel free to email me. I'll put my email in the chat. And then we also have another webinar coming up in March that's going to talk more specifically about e-bikes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kirby. That was so much great information. And yes, we'll do a deeper dive on e-bikes on March 19th. So you should see the promotions. I'll actually at the end put the Eventbrite registration in the chat. I don't know if you have access to that, Kirby. If you do, if you could do that, that'd be great. Otherwise, I'll do it at the end. It's great. We already have 20 people, signed up. So lots of interest in an e-bike. That's awesome. I'm seeing a couple of questions in the chat before I move on. Sometimes people send a question just to me, but I think this is a really great question and I'd like to answer it for everyone. So somebody asks, what are the major repair and maintenance costs associated with EVs? How often does the repair and maintenance need to happen? I'll start with that part. So really, it's changing your windshield wiper fluid and rotating your tires and replacing your tires. I think I replace my tires after about 35,000 miles, and I rotate them every 6,000 miles. And really, it's just, windshield wiper fluid, because there are there aren't many parts in an EV, so not a lot can break. Sometimes you may have seen reports that say like, oh, it's a lot, there are lots of issues, but when you dig down into those reports, it's like little electronic gadgets that might break in your car for the most part, but the drivetrain is incredibly reliable. And so repairs, I mean, I've been an EV owner, well, only for 5 years, but I have 3 EVs. I have not had any issues that have not been self-inflicted, should I say. As I mentioned, I do have teenagers at home, so there have been an issue, a few like body work things that we had to do, and we had to replace our windshield ones because we got hit by a rock when we were driving. But I haven't had any issues at all with any of them. And specifically, I can speak. I'm not recommending Tesla necessarily, but I can speak to Tesla because I asked them when I went in there to replace my windshield wipers or something. And they said, we recommend after 6 years that you bring your EV in to replace the coolant for the AC. So that's it. So it's not a lot of repairs. And this is a second part of it is, and so, the second part is the cost of battery replacement. How often does this need to happen? So with the EVs that are out here now, we don't expect that you'll ever have to replace the batteries. The EV that comes with your car should last as long as the body of your car. So we're not talking at all about replacing batteries. I mean, yes, there was a recall on the Chevy Bolt, and I was just on a webinar this morning. Out of all of the Chevy Bolts that were sold, there had been some battery issues with like 10 EVs, 10 of them. So they did a recall for all of them. But so for the most part, there's no need to replace a battery. There is battery degradation, so that's a real thing. Most manufacturers recommend that you keep your EV charge between 20 to 80%. And I'm not good at this, but they also recommend with any lithium ion battery that you keep them between 20 and 80%. That means your laptops, your computers, your cell phones should really be, they're at their happiest between 20 to 80% in terms of like battery, saving the battery. But so there is some battery degradation, and I'll give you an example. When I had my Tesla Model 3, I bought the standard version, which ended up being like $30,000 after rebates, and it had a 240-mile range at the beginning. And then after 4 years, I sold it this year. After 4 years, it was down to 226, which on a day-to-day basis really didn't make any difference for me. It was just like when I go on a road trip, I may have to stop and charge a little bit more frequently. So battery degradation is a thing. They expect like 10 to 15% battery degradation after 8 to 10 years. So that's a thing. But even if you still have 200-mile range, that's still really significant, and you might be able to do most of your driving on that EV or sell it in the used market. to somebody who will just use it as a commuter car. And then, so the batteries aren't an issue. And I will just say this because I know City of Oakland, I know many of you are concerned about this, but the one downside about EVs is the sourcing of the minerals for the batteries. That it's not always, these minerals don't always come from the most ethical sources. And but with this new federal tax credit, we're really working toward only giving rebates to the manufacturers that are sourcing the battery minerals from more ethical sources, and then also building the components in countries that are our trade partners. So for example, not China, and some other, not China, Russia, Iran, and there's one other I don't remember. So we're really just trying to support countries that are democracies and trying to do the right thing in terms of, of good labor practices, I should say. Okay, but the good news about this is they can all be recycled and the minerals can be reused in future EV batteries. So when you drive a gas car, once you have, combusted the gas, it's gone forever. But with an EV, you do have the battery, but there are already recycling centers for EV batteries. So we are recycling the minerals and reusing them already, which is really good news. And I know that is going to really step up. Sorry, that was a really long answer, but I see a few more questions real quickly. The range estimates for EVs are grossly exaggerated by car makers. Is there, help finding out? Yeah, here's the thing, Anthony. So when people say how much range you have, that's like if you drive 60 on a freeway and you don't use your AC or your heater. So in ideal conditions, that's what that's why they're overstated. But for the most part, if you are driving in, pretty temperate climate, like we do typically here in California, and you're not, you don't have the AC and the heat blasting, it's pretty accurate. And yeah, habits, climate controls, all those things. Yeah. So one thing, like for example, in the winter, what you can do if you are able to charge your EV at home, you can put the heater on, sometimes remotely from your phone, or turn on the heater so that your car is warm when you come in while it's still plugged in. So you're not using any of that battery energy. And then turn it off when you get in the car and use your seat warmers because that draws much less electricity. Yeah, so the cost of charging compared to a gas car, it's less expensive. Um, it depends because gas prices fluctuate, but typically at home we say it could be between 2 and 5 times more expensive to drive a gas car. And then if you're using fast chargers on the road, it ends up being about half of the cost of gasoline. And I know there's a lot of work toward like equity, trying to make things, equal. I know for some people who live in apartments and condos, it's not as easy to charge. I have a slide about that coming up here, but trying to make sure that it is, equitable, that the price is equitable to somebody who can just plug in at home and get the same electricity rate that they get for their other, house appliances and such. Okay, I'm going to keep moving here. Because I have a couple more slides that I want to get through, and then we'll do Q&A at the end. So this next section is mostly about charging. So many people are worried about charging, but for most people, 80 to 90% of charging is done at home or at work. Charging at home is easy. You just plug in the charger that comes with your vehicle into a standard 120-volt outlet. I was just at a conference last week, and a guy from Peninsula Clean Energy did a study on the peninsula, and he learned that for 95% of people who live on the peninsula, using a level 1 charger, just plugging into the outlet is enough. There are no install costs besides perhaps an extension cord, and it gives you about 40 miles of range in 8 hours, which could be overnight or during the day when electricity is not so expensive. In the Bay Area, on average, people drive 25 miles a day. So this solution called level 1 charging is easy and works great for most people most of the time. If you drive more than 40 miles a day, a good option is to see if you do have workplace charging. I know it's going to be expanding for the city of Oakland. And if not, you may want to purchase a home charging station for level 2 charging. You'll get 25 miles an hour, so you can easily get a full charge overnight. And now I'm speaking to people who have access to an outlet where they park their car at home. It's a really different experience than fueling a gas car. With an EV, you're really just topping off the electricity that you use that day. So if you can plug it in every day, you're just going maybe between 60 to 80% of your battery range, just kind of topping it off. And that's typically how a lot of EV drivers do this. Um, so let's see. So the first step for level 1 and level 2 is to check in with an electrician. But when you're on a road trip or using public charging as your main source of charging your EV, you'll want to go with fast chargers, level 3 chargers. There are currently 3 standards. The one on the left is CHAdeMO. Only the Nissan Leaf uses that now. The one on the right is Tesla, which currently is proprietary for Tesla cars. The one in the middle is the CCS standard, which all other EVs use. But there's some really exciting news. The Tesla supercharging network we know is reliable, like 99% of the time it works. So in this year, in 2024, almost every single EV manufacturer is going to be providing an adapter so that if you have the center, the CCS charger that's in the middle there will be an adapter so you can use the Tesla supercharging network. So that's really exciting because we want the charging experience to be very easy and reliable for people. Starting in 2025, these manufacturers are going to be installing that Tesla port in their cars. We're not calling it a Tesla port anymore. It's a NACS, or North American Charging Standard. So that's going to make charging on the road so much easier for everyone. Once you start driving electric, it's ideal to charge your EV with rooftop solar. There's a federal tax credit available this year and for the next 9 years. It's a great, for 30% of the cost of solar. It's a great feeling to charge your car from the electricity that you generate from your own roof. And the credit is also for storage for a battery, so 30% off the cost. So really nice. If you're not ready for solar, you can choose a clean energy plan from your utility or CCA so that you're charging your EV with clean energy from the sun and the wind. For example, if Ava Community Energy is your local clean energy provider, they do serve the East Bay. They used to be East Bay Clean Energy. They generate the clean electricity that PG&E will then deliver to your home. So you still get your bill from PG&E. It's just there's a line item on there that would say AVA, electricity generation. AVA's standard product is called Bright Choice, and it offers 50% renewables. And you can easily upgrade to Renewable 100 for a 100% renewable energy. It costs about $4 a month more than your PG&E on average. That's for the 100%, but the Bright Choice is probably cheaper than PG&E's electricity. In addition to clean energy, your utility may have a special reduced EV or time of use rate so that you pay less for electricity during certain times. In the Bay Area, for the most part, that's between midnight and 3 p.m. when it's the most affordable. And then the least affordable is between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. So it's a time of use kind of special rate for EV drivers. There are other time of use rates that you can look into as well. But really, our utilities are trying to change our behavior so we don't use a lot of electricity between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. That's when most people are home using all of their appliances and such. I know this question came up. Herbie, I don't know if you got a response at all about locations or if anybody on this call can speak to locations for workplace charging, but I unfortunately am not an expert. There is this image here from PlugShare. So it does show some of the charging stations that are available. Looks like there are 20 here where it says Uptown Oakland, and some in the south of the South Kennedy tract.
Yeah, I think we'll have to follow up and maybe we can get something out to all the participants. But I know we do have some chargers at the City Center West garage that can be used by employees. And then I believe there are a few chargers as well in the Dalziel garage. And we are working on a large project with Ava Community Energy to install 20 to 30 fast chargers at City Center West. And we're going to continue doing that at other city-owned garages and lots. So more charging is definitely coming. But I think all of it should be on PlugShare. So I would just use PlugShare.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Yeah, that's a really great idea. PlugShare is the app that you'll use to find the chargers. I know I'm running out of time. I do want to do this slide because I suspect a lot of people who work for City of Oakland work, it's a dense area, Oakland. So many people live in multifamily properties, apartments, and condos. So there are several EV solutions for people who do live in multifamily chargers. More solutions are on their way. So if a charging station is not available at your apartment or condo, people will charge by plugging into a standard 120-volt outlet if it's available. There are new smart outlets that are an inexpensive solution to charging that also handles billing. I have more information about this if you're interested. People do charge at work, and it's really great to charge at work. And I know this is growing for the City of Oakland employees because we have a lot of solar energy on our grid. So when we can charge during the day, this is fantastic. We want to use up those renewables because when the sun goes down, we lose those if we don't use them. And then other people charge at public fast charging stations. On average, fast charging will take you from like 10% of your battery to 80% in 30 minutes or less. A little more about charging on the road. I really want to be able to answer your questions, but yeah, here I'm mentioning PlugShare is a great place to go where you can find out exactly, where the charging stations are. You might want to find out where they are close to your home and close to your work. These are the typical level 3 charging networks that are available where you would charge your EV, Electrify America, EVgo, Tesla, and ChargePoint. A little bit more about who we are and what we do. So we do these EV and e-bike discount campaigns. As I mentioned, we have that discount campaign going on right now on some really great cars. We put on EV and e-bike shows like we will be doing for City of Oakland employees in May. It'll be either May 23rd, 24th, or 25th. We do more public webinars. If you go to Ride and Drive Clean and our events page, you'll find out exactly where those are. And we also have a website full of great information like buying guides and such. So I'd like to thank you all for attending this program today, wherever you are in your journey to an EV. I hope it was helpful. And I also want to thank East Bay Clean Cities Coalition for sponsoring the webinar and for everyone from the City of Oakland to attend. So if you can make the switch to driving electric now, we're here to help. The sooner the better. If you're not ready now, can we have your support by pledging to make your next car electric? Our biggest ask really is please don't buy a new gas car. It will be on the earth emitting carbon and air pollution for 12 to 15 years, and we have to stop doing that as quickly as possible.